Alrighty, behind me is a good old crew cab long bed OBS Ford. And once I saw it, I just knew I had to have it. Got a really good deal on it, brought her home. And now that it's in my hands, I feel like we might as well dig into the engine a little bit, try to juice this thing up, and add some power to this old grandpa truck in a way that I've never seen done before. So this engine already has this little baby turbo stock. And now I'm gonna add this turbo, which is a VGT. As you can see, all these little vanes, which this will be a pain to line back up now that this is separated, but I'll pull the exhaust housing off so that it's easier to mock up our turbo plumbing and whatnot. And all these vanes are operated just by this lever right here. And then I'm going to manually control the vanes of this turbo from inside the cab with a little lever or something. It'll be super easy to do, just tie into this lever. I think I'm going to control it with this push-pull cable I had laying around. And this should be pretty effective at perfectly controlling the positioning of these vanes. And I don't think I've ever seen a VGT be manually controlled, so I think it should be pretty fun to mess around with it while driving down the road. So I made this custom pipe flange mount thing that'll support the second turbo and take the exhaust from the back of the stock turbo and then feed it through, split it to these two pipes, because on the turbo we're adding, it has these two inlet ports. So I have that whole pattern designed into this plate as well. So the outlet of our stock turbo is 2.5 inches, and then the inlet for our new turbo is these two 2-inch diameter holes. So I have this 2-inch diameter pipe that wides together here, and then meets up with this 2.5-inch elbow. But now the overlap, you got a gap there, and gap there. So what I'm going to do is squeeze on the end of that 2.5-inch pipe, and that's going to flatten it a little bit so that these sides go in, these sides go out, and we have a little oval junction there, and everything lines up nicely. I even put a EGT fitting right here, so this will be in between the turbos, which will at least give us some idea of what our exhaust gas temperatures are doing. And I tried to kind of evenly split this flow with these two tubes, but I don't think it matters too much that they're equal flow, because as you can see in this turbo, the two sides are only separated momentarily before they meet back up right there and conjoin into one path. Now here's a stock elbow for the downpipe, which it has this wastegate flap incorporated into it. But wastegates are for weenies, so we're doing away with that. So as you can imagine, this bolt pattern is the same as this bolt pattern. And normally it had a wastegate port right here. But since the whole back surface of the turbo is machined flat, we're just gonna have this area of metal blocking off that wastegate passageway. All right, now for the fun part of trying to bolt this thing on. I put this sealant on here because there wasn't a gasket on the back of this turbo before. And this is some sealant that's rated to like 2,000 degrees, so hopefully it seals up good for us. Alrighty, there's one bolt started. I hope I nailed the spacing of this wonky bolt pattern when I was designing this flange. So far, so good. And for the hardest bolt, will it line up? Yeah, I think I have it started. Now we'll cinch these all down. Alright, let's try to finagle this housing in here. I do actually have gaskets for this junction, so I don't think we'll have any issue sealing right there. Alright, let's see if we can get one started. Surprisingly, I got all 6 bolts started, so now let's see if we can actually get a wrench on them and get them tightened up. Yeah, this is gonna be a slow process, so I'll just reunite with you guys here in the near future when I'm done. All right, this turbo housing is bolted in. It's pretty sturdy with its current mounting system, but once we add the rest of the weight of this turbo with the second half, it is gonna still be a lot of weight leveraged off of this exhaust mount here. So I'm gonna tie it into the block up here too to give it added support. So I made this bracket here, because we have these 2 factory bolt holes that aren't doing anything. And there's 2 holes on the bottom pedestal of this turbo here. So this will go in here. So then this turbo will be super solid up here and won't vibrate or shake or anything while we're driving this truck in a way that I tend to like to drive trucks. Yeah, that bracket's in there and this thing is rock solid. All right, I have this collar back in. It links all the vanes together, so now you can see them doing their dance. And the cool thing about being able to control this manually and having a VGT is I can shut these vanes fully to really choke exhaust flow, and then I'll have an exhaust brake. Now I'll try to line this up. Sweet, it's all coming together now. I guess you could say all the hard parts are done, because now we just need to get the outlet of this turbo feeding into the inlet of this turbo, then get an air filter on this, and then she'll be ready to run. After as well, we hook the oil lines back up. I have this new 4-foot line tapped into a port at the back of the engine. They'll go and feed oil to this turbo. And then obviously for the finishing touch of the exhaust system, we're going with a hood stack. I already cut out this flange there that bolts onto this turbo housing. So we'll just put this on and weld that there. Now, the reason I'm doing a hood stack, 1, because I like hood stacks. 2, because it's the simplest way to route this exhaust. And 3, now I'll have a direct line of sight on my exhaust stream to where if we're blowing a bunch of black smoke, I can adjust what I'm doing with the VGT turbo and try to make it run as optimally as possible. And for the moment of truth, hard to see, but we got, you know, maybe like 4 inches above the turbo. Definitely clears. All right, so from factory, this engine vents its crankcase pressure out the valve cover through here. But I want to take my new turbo oil drain and dump it into the valve cover. And I don't think it'll be a good idea to try to dump oil into the valve cover as well as try to evacuate crankcase pressure out of it, because I feel like the pass-through holes through the head aren't big enough to handle all that air and oil running through it. So instead, I'm going to vent crankcase pressure out this cover plate that used to be here. There's that gap running around there that'll allow plenty of crankcase pressure to vent out. But I am going to take off this valve cover and replace it with this other valve cover that already has this hole further set back, and that's going to help my drain plumbing to be a little more smooth and easy to work with. Okay, welded this elbow to this valve cover. So let's throw this in here. Okay, welded this 90 on this plate, so that covers up that hole. Alrighty, so I have this elbow and aluminum pipe to connect these 2 turbos together. See how this turbo has this angle right there? So I'm basically just gonna cut there and there so that this elbow gets taken out, and then I'll weld that back together. And then once that bend is taken out, this outlet will naturally be facing this way, which will be perfectly parallel on the same face as our other turbo over there. So we can just run a nice elbow like that. Okay, this is tacked back together how I like it. So now to fully weld this out. Alrighty, now this compressor housing is welded back up. Now it's running at the exact angle that I wanted. Let's go test fit it on the truck. Alrighty, this cable's mounted through the firewall now and extended way out to here. Drill a little hole through my dash here. Now this little handle, and I can move back and forth. And that's a pretty smooth operation to control my VGT lever there. Let's see if this old baby will start. Rip right now. Building boost, 10 psi, 15, 20. Looks like 20 psi is the max we're hitting right now, which is plenty more than an IDI really needs to be ingesting in stock form. People have blown head gaskets on them before at 15 psi. I've run them a bunch of like 25 psi with different turbo setups, and they've held up for me all right so far, so we'll see how long this one lasts. I'm going to use these straps to torque back my axle, so hopefully I can lay down the rubber a little better, not be so chirpy. getting a little hot. We're going to try one more burnout. We've added 2 fans on the front of it now. That's going to help send more air through the radiator. Maybe that'll keep it a little cooler. We'll see. Well, this engine's pushing a lot of blow-by and a lot of oil out of random places, but I know how we can redeem this truck still. A deck toolbox. I'm stoked about this. Deck sent me it. And this toolbox is going to be perfect for storing a bunch of my spare engine parts. You can put spare rockers and push rods and lifters all in this tray. So now I'm set up to completely rebuild my engine on the side of the road. Designed with a super durable plastic that makes it super resistant to dents and dings. So feel free to check out Deck for yourself. It makes quality products. Plus these look way better than some diamond plate box and it'll last a lot longer.